everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in creating these fun Argyle earrings, which are featured in our December Best Bead Box XL. Remember, if you do want to get the box, you want to check anything out about it, click on the links below, also for a full list of the materials in case you did miss out on this month's box. So to begin this design, what I want to do and feature is 2 of my 15mm boxes here. And these square forms we're going to decorate with some brick stitch. We're going to create 2 identical forms with a little RounDuo mini accent here, featuring the 1.5mm by 2mm Potomac crystal rondelles, and those are in the dark coral red color. And then I have 11O seed beads in the silver lined green, a nice Christmas green. We are featuring those 2 on the sides of brick stitch on the forms. And what we're going to do is, after we create these 2 identical forms, we are going to lay them one over top of the other, combine them in the middle, and then add some accents along the outer edge. To begin, I have a size 12 needle with 0.006 wildfire thread in a white color to match the silver. I'm going to begin with actually my little addition there of the RounDuo minis, and I want to put 4 of the RounDuo minis onto my thread and needle. Dropping down to the base of that thread, I'm going to tie this into a knot. When I tie this into a knot, it is going to pull it around into a circle. So you can see right there, pulls it around into that circle to get that nice kind of little floral look. Go ahead then and tie a second knot, so you have that double knot featured on it, which is going to hold it together. Make sure when you tie the double knot that you're in the correct spot and that you haven't shifted over in between the other 2 beads. I'm just going to pull that one over here, move it back over to the correct side, and then give a nice tight pull. From here, we're going to put a little tiny red berry in the middle of our holly flower here, and I want to sew through the first hole, so the one that I already went through of the next RounDuo mini. Grab one of your crystal rondelles, and I'm coming out the bottom of that right side of my RounDuo mini. I'm going to go into the top of the left side of the RounDuo mini through the same hole that I've already used. So I'm going into that interior hole, and I'm going to go, again, coming out bottom left, I'm going to go into top right. What that's going to do is pull that little berry so it sits on a diagonal in between the RounDuo minis. Give a nice little tight pull there, and then I'm going to step up on that same RounDuo mini from that first hole to the second hole, or the outer hole of the bead. So you'll see a little bit of thread there on the side, but you're not going to worry about that too much. When we get to the outer hole of the bead, what I want you to do is add 111, 1 crystal, 111. Coming out that second hole, we're going to go into that same RounDuo mini bead. So I want to go into the same bead from the same direction. So I'm coming out basically the right-hand side there. I'm going to go into the left. And that's going to pull to have that little kind of holly look right on top. To get to the next bead, to do the exact same thing, grab one of your crystal rondelles and then sew into the second hole of the next RounDuo mini. Again, we're going to do the same exact thing. 11, then your crystal, then your 11. Go back through that same bead to decorate the top of the RounDuo mini in that petrol color. I'm going to do this 2 more times, so that way I have my entire little flower here framed out with my holly, with my crystals combining and kind of jumping from one bead to the next. As you finish up your little holly flower there, I have my last crystal, and I'm going into that first RounDuo mini, again into that second hole there. And as I go into that second hole and out the other side, what I want to do is I want to then step up into my seed beads and come out my crystal. So I'm going to go back through that first 11O and the first crystal that you added. Now on your first little square, it doesn't matter whether or not you begin with the green or with the red. What we're going to be doing is turning them over so that way one sits one way, one sits the other way. So as I go in here to create my next little version, I'm going to begin with the red. I started with the green on my first one. So to start with the red, I'm coming out of one of my crystals, and what I'm going to do is add 1 and 2 of my red crystals. So on the first one, I started adding the green. I'm going to lay this against the frame, sew through my frame, and then I'm going to sew back up through the second red crystal towards the first. So I'm sewing between the first two, and this is the start of brick stitch. I'm going to leave enough room so that that red seed bead, or that red crystal rather, can also sit upright as I come back and finish the project. I'm going to continue now. There's 2 red beads on. I'm going to continue till I have 7 red beads on. Going through, and I'm doing this one quickly and then I'll explain again, and adding the red beads so they sit along the line of the frame in brick stitch. You're adding a bead, letting that drop down next to your frame, sewing from the back of the frame through the front of the frame, or the other way, it's up to you. And then sewing back up through that seed bead from the bottom towards the top, which is going to look like you're sewing back towards the last bead that's in the brick stitch. If you do need help with brick stitch, we have lots of videos on this brick stitch in a form. I have another bead on. Again, sew through the form. I kind of keep the bead there at the top, and then sew back up through the bead and out towards the top. So currently I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beads on. I need 2 more red, and then I'm going to turn the corner and start on green. 7 green, turn the corner, start on 7 more red. And till you get to the total, back down here on your 7th green, and I'll show you how we're going to combine and add it on to our little kind of holly flower there. Each time you switch to a new color here, just like I did the green, that new color is going to present itself on the corner of the frame. So I have my first one here where I look at it. I just added in my second. The first one there, the thread looks like it's coming right out from the corner. So if you look at this one here, that first green was out from the corner. Then as I start my red, that one goes out to the corner. As you create this, you want to make sure to not use more than 7 beads. If they start to get too close together, sometimes the thread will bunch up and then they won't lay nicely along your form. So it's always better with the brick stitch to err on the side of less is better than overstocking and having more. So I'm continuing on. I have right now my 4th green bead, and I've got 3 more to add, and then I'll turn the corner, add my red, then I'll turn the corner and add my green till I get back down to the end here to connect at the bottom. So once you finish your form and you're coming back down to the bottom here and you have your last green bead in, what we're going to do after coming out the top of the green bead is we are going to sew through that crystal that sits right along the center here. So remember that crystal there that's at the top of that little holly bead? We're going to sew through that red crystal and towards the outer edge. That's going to bring it so it's going to sit between these 2 red beads here. When I sew now through the red bead, I want to actually sew through the top of the red bead and down towards the project. And that's going to make that sit right in the center of the 2. Go through your form then. Now notice I turned it over just because it's easier to look at. I'm going to sew through and back up through bead number 1. And that will make this hang directly coming out the base middle between those 2 beads. So you're going to end up with 2 exact forms when you're looking at them. When you are looking at them, this was the word of caution, whatever you start with on one form, start with the other on the other side, because you want that crystal to sit to the top, so we want them to be opposite. What we're going to do now is we are going to piece them together. So when we piece them together, we're going to overlap them. One of our little flowers is going to go to the top. One of our little holly flowers is going to go to the bottom. I'm going to completely get rid of my thread here on each of my forms and start anew. So when I'm coming out that red seed bead here, I'm going to go back into the design. So back a couple rows here, just right back into my piece. Tuck underneath my form so I don't see a lot of extra thread line. Go back through the side here, and I'm going to do a simple knot towards the back of the project, sewing underneath one of my bridge threads, making a loop, sewing through that loop to knot it, and then I'm simply going to burn my thread edges down. I'm going to burn my thread edge down along the base here where I tied a knot as well, and then take my thread burner and burn it flush towards the project. Same thing over here, burn it down. This is the back side, and I'm burning flush towards the project. I'm then going to have two identical pieces here with these two identical frames, having that holly hang down from the center of that. As I have these two identical frames, we're going to get ready with a new piece of thread to stack one right on top of the other. For our next little set here, what I want you to do is start out just like we did the bottom two forms, and we are going to make one of our little flowers here. So I have my pastel petal where I added 4, and then I went in after I tied them into a knot, and on an angle, I added in my crystal. From here, I stepped up from the interior hole to the exterior hole of one of my RounDuos. Just like I would on this mini for the previous ones, go in and add seed beads, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is stack these one on top of the other, and we're going to put this right inside that interior of the frames where they cross over. So coming out here, I'm going to begin with just my one single frame, and I'm going to attach this to that single frame. So I'm going to go through the frame, and I'm coming between like this, the first bead of a color, and I'm going to sew back through that first hole. And that's just going to put that thread and needle right there on that frame. Second one, I'm going to do the same thing, going where it seems natural for it to kind of go through the brick stitch that you already did. Go around the frame, back up through the frame to catch onto the frame, and then back through that bead. And give a nice tight pull. That now has that bead right there and this little center section already attached. This is a great place if you want to actually make the earring shorter. Just stop here. Add a little wire guard or a wire protector or just your earring right off the brick stitch thread. If you want to stack on top, what we're going to do now is sew down to the bottom of this piece. So I'm going to go back into the interior hole. So I'm sewing down through the interior of the hole. Going through that interior hole there, you can see. And I'm going to work my way down towards the bead that sits at the opposite side. Bead that sits at the opposite side here. And you can see I've gone through all the middle holes there. I'm going to step up from the bottom hole to the top hole. When I step up to that top hole, and what I'm going to flip over quick and do is kind of tuck that thread end back there, I'm going to do the exact same thing, kind of ignoring the fact that the bottom is already connected. Just grab my next form, make sure that my berries are to the top, and go in here to this form as well and do the same exact thing. So I'm going to bring my thread and needle right now just to the top of that form that I'm setting over, so I didn't sew through any beads yet. I'm going to lay this form right over top of the other one. See where it seems natural and fitting between those first two green beads. I'm going to sew through there and then back through that second hole. So we're doing the exact same thing of that RounDuo mini. You can see there it's going to connect onto that side. From here, I'm coming out the other side. I'm going to sew through the two red beads here in the form. See, I'm just sewing right through the form. Go right back through them towards the front. So I'm going around the form, tucking my thread in between the beads, so it shouldn't go around the beads, it should just go around the form, and then back into that same second hole of that pastel petal RounDuo mini. So exactly what I did, it's a little bit harder to see on the second side, but exactly what I did to the first side is what I'm doing to the second side. So when you attach the first side with the RounDuo minis, second side, exact same way. Now just to make it a little bit more stable, I'm going to, again, sew down into that same RounDuo mini bead, and my knot's right there, so I'm just going to kind of have to wiggle around it. I'm going to bring my needle and thread towards the top. I'm not sewing through any beads. That was just the easier way to go. I'm going to sew through the next RounDuo mini. Now, just like we attached the top and the bottom we're also going to attach the sides. So I'm going to sew through this side RounDuo mini here from the bottom hole to the top hole. Look and see where it feels comfortable. Sew through the form between two of the beads, go under the form and back through the middle, and then you'll just see a tiny bit of thread right there on the exterior and back through that hole. So again, this is just kind of securing it along the sides. Same deal, look where it feels comfortable. Sew through one of the holes right here, through the forms. And this time you're going to be on the back form, going underneath it, up towards the top, and then sew back through the RounDuo mini. Now, could you have done this as you were going around? Absolutely. The reason I did the top and the bottom first is because just it's a little bit easier to keep track of as you're learning. So I did that to one side. Now to stabilize the other side, we're going to connect to that RounDuo mini that's over there as well. I'm going to go back down into the RounDuo mini and out over to the other one along the center here. Again over, so I'm coming out through this one here on the left, going through the first hole, exiting through the first hole, stepping up to the second hole, exiting through the second hole, and then going through the seed beads that feel comfortable on the bottom loop first, going through the bottom form, or the form that sits lower, going underneath the form, sewing through that RounDuo mini, through that second hole. Now I'm off to, and by the time you get this done, it's really, really stabilized in there. Coming out through this other side now, coming out on the right side. Again, pick a space in the form, and I'm only going through that top form. I'm going around the form, tucking underneath the form, and then sewing back through the RounDuo mini and bringing my needle out. And now I'm completely attached. So you have that complete attachment in the center where it now really feels like one complete unit, and you don't have a lot of wiggle room between the two. They're not going to wiggle around. They are a complete unit sewed together. For this thread that's still on my thread and needle, I'm going to sew it back towards the back starter thread, tie them off, and then burn them down towards the back of the project. Once we get done with the middle connector, now it's time to do our sides. So I already did one of my sides here, connecting it, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do the other side. So back at the very beginning, and on the top and the bottom of the forms, we did our little flowers here that have our seed beads going around the top, and then as we connect to that second hole of the RounDuo mini, we also add a little red crystal between them. So what I'm going to show is, as you're coming around and you're adding these in, you're going to do, oops, that's a head pin. You're going to do 3 sides and then stop. So we're going to do our third side here, and then we're going to stop. So I have my 3 sides in. You see they're decorated. I have these 2 little berries on the side, and then I have stopped. Now what we're going to do is actually attach it to the side of our piece. So just like we did to the interior, we're connecting it. However, on the sides, what we're going to do is connect it actually onto the corner bead of each one of the designs. So here I'm going to connect it to the corner bead of the red of the top frame, and I'm going to connect it to the corner bead green of the bottom frame. Coming out the second hole of that top RounDuo, I'm going to pick up that top frame, because I'm making sure that I can see those berries facing up, and I'm going to sew down into that top red, or that corner red crystal. That's going to bring this along the side of the design. You can see there it's starting to fit already. And when I come out the back, I'm not going to go back through the seed bead, because I want the RounDuo to sit really close. I'm going to go back through that same RounDuo bead towards the exterior. So we went from the RounDuo through that red crystal, around the frame, and to the back of the frame, and pulling it tight. So you're going to see a little bit of thread towards the back of the piece. You can see it over here, that little gap thread. Coming around then, I want you to go through the exterior crystal, exterior RounDuo mini. We're getting to the bottom RounDuo mini then to connect that. So I'm just going to kind of move that stop bead out of the way, go through that corner crystal until I'm coming out through that last RounDuo mini that we just decorated with seed beads along the top. When I'm out there, I'm going to grab the green seed bead, and I'm to the back, so I'm going to flip it over to the front. I'm going to grab the green seed bead that's on the corner. So through the green seed bead on the corner of the bottom frame, see how that brings it in there nice and tight? Under the frame, towards the back of the design, flipping it over so you can see it a little bit easier, I'm then going to sew back through that same RounDuo mini, just to pull it in a little closer to the design. Once I'm out that corner round or that bottom RounDuo mini then, all we have to do to finish this connection is sew down into the project. So I'm going to sew down from the top hole to the bottom hole of that same RounDuo mini, making sure the thread's at the back here. Spinning it around in my hand, I'm going to sew through the next RounDuo mini, and this is literally just so I can tie the two thread ends together. Then through the next one, through that center hole. And as I come out the center hole then, what that does is gets my thread right next to one another. Go ahead then, tie off these thread ends. Right over left, left over right. Nice tight tie. And now your opportunity to burn down your thread edges. The only thing left that I have to do is pick up my ear wire and attach it onto the top of the piece. Now what's the top, what's the bottom? That's kind of up to you. Whether or not you want the top frame to sit in front or the bottom frame to sit in front. I'm gonna have my bottom frame sit in front, just naturally it's easier for me to kind of handle that weight. And I'm going to open up my ear wire, simply sliding to the side, pick up my large earring here, go into that top loop of seed beads above the RounDuo mini, and simply then close up the ear wire. And there I have my beautiful earring completed. So it's kind of a showstopper. It's one of those that as you're wearing it, as you're looking at it, you're totally gonna get people asking you about it. It is about 2.5 inches long when you're looking at it. And remember, you can stop pretty much at any point in the design. So if you don't want this really long earring, and I'll hold it up here so you can see how long it is. With the green screen, you lose it a little bit, but it's gonna come to kind of my mid-neck there. And you can stop at any point in the design of the creation. You're really becoming proficient at brick stitch, and then you're becoming proficient at adding beads onto the side of the brick stitch as you learn this awesome Argyle earring. As always, thank you so much for joining me in the creation of these Argyle earrings that Anna created. Remember, if you haven't checked out the Best Box or the Best Box XL yet, we'll put links below that you can shop with us online. Also in the comments, remember to say exactly where you're going to stop if you're making the full earring, color selections and choices that you made, and really build up this awesome beading community. As always, a little thumbs up helps us to know that we're on the right track and that you like the video and the content that we're producing. Remember, if you haven't yet, hit that little subscribe button in the corner so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you need any materials, again, check out those links below the video to shop with us online and have fun making your Argyle earrings.